Hey, I'm Di McQueen, licensed clinical social worker, family and addiction expert. I'm here with Dr. Brian Jackson, my longtime cohort who specializes in the field of addiction. Welcome to Healing Families Shattered by Addiction.
Di and I have worked with addicts, alcoholics, and their families for over 30 years combined. Our podcast and coaching programs focus on families who have a loved one suffering from addiction. Our experience has been that this disease affects families as much, if not more, than the addict or alcoholic.
Is your world spinning out of control? Are you codependent? Are you experiencing worry, loss of sleep, and difficulty concentrating? If so, you're in the right place. Brian and I have both personally lived it, learned it, and now we're going to teach you tools and techniques on how to get your life back that you thought was shattered by addiction.
Okay, let's dive in.
Brian and I are so excited to introduce to you our new sponsor, Lakeview Health. They are a wonderful residential treatment center. Whether it's the family member who is looking for a place or the addict or alcoholic themselves, this would be the place that we would refer them to. Brian, you have many years of experience with Lakeview.
Yeah, Lakeview Health is a center of excellent addiction treatment. They take an evidence-based approach, medical approach to treating this complex brain disease. They hold the Joint Commission's Golden Seal, and they were voted one of America's best treatment centers by Newsweek magazine. They deliver dual diagnosis, gender-responsive, and trauma-informed care at their gorgeous facility here in Jacksonville, Florida. But they do see people from all over the world do come here to Jacksonville to go to treatment at Lakeview. Their levels of care include medically supervised detox, which a lot of people do need. Then they stabilize them in a residential rehabilitation and partial hospitalization program. They have board-certified physicians, master-level therapists, and they work to address the unique needs of each patient. So in other words, it's not a cookie-cutter program. They help individuals build skills for long-term sobriety. So if you or someone you know needs treatment, please visit their site at lakeviewhealth.com. We also have a hyperlink on our website at familyandaddictionexperts.com where you can just click and get some information about Lakeview Health. And Di, I think you have a number for people to call if they would like to inquire about treatment.
I sure do. That number is 888-480-3799. That's 888-480-3799. Give them a call. Hey everybody, this is Di McQueen, and I'm back from Healing Families Shattered by Addiction. Today I wanted to talk to you about this concept called powerlessness. And for a long time, I hear this word powerlessness, and I had no earthly I can remember when I first got into recovery. People would talk about that, that first step, right? That they were powerless over alcohol and that their lives had become unmanageable. And for a very long time, I really had no earthly understanding of what powerlessness meant. And so I thought maybe I would talk to you a little bit about what is powerlessness and really give you a defined definition, because I had a lot of ideas what I thought powerlessness was and, ways in which powerlessness might be and, how it might affect my life. And it affected my life in one way, when I was the addict, in another way when I was the family member, etc. But when I put the concept together, it made a lot more sense to me. And I get asked all the time, can you help me understand what is powerlessness? And I'm like, yeah, in fact, I can. And so let's talk about that a little bit. So good morning, everybody. Good to be back. And I hope you're having a really wonderful day. So let's talk about what is powerlessness and how does it kind of get involved in the world of addiction. So let's talk about that. Powerlessness is a sensation of being out of control with no apparent solution to help or regain control. A complete lack of control, authority, or status to affect how others will treat or act towards you or us, right? A lack of capability to affect the realities of life and that feeling of being out of control, right? So let's give some examples. How others treat you, how others act towards you, if you get the job you want, if you'll be accepted to the school you desire, how the weather is going to be, if an accident will occur, if an act of God, like a tornado, hurricane, etc., is going to happen, and if it's going to affect you or somebody else that you love. Those are just minor examples, right? Or let's talk about how it applies to us. If someone you love is going to become an addict or an alcoholic, we're powerless over those things. May or may not happen. And our job is the opposites, right? But, when we think we can control that, we then get into a really, really skewed way of thinking, right? So we'll get there. The lack of ability, that adds to powerlessness, right? Examples: to affect or control the compulsion of an addict's behaviors of others, how it affects us negatively. To make others act the way that we want them to. To change past events in our lives to make them be what we wanted to be today. To ensure that all of our dreams and fantasies for our lives will become a reality. To completely change things that you have attempted repeatedly with no success. You have the lack of ability when you're dealing with these things, and you affect your life by trying to control something you cannot control. We have a lack of strength or competence or skills to overcome realities in our lives that have no current or apparent solution, such as the cure for AIDS or cancer, complete recovery from cerebral palsy, bringing back a loved one from death. Again, these are things that we think we can somehow control, and we cannot control. The recognition that there are for you people, problems, and things that are uncontrollable and unchangeable and are out of your power to control or affect. And they cause you to become unmanageable because somehow in our minds, we think we can control that. So what happens, right, when we start to think that we can control something we can't control? The negative consequences of not accepting our personal powerlessness. If you don't accept that we can't control something that we think we can control, our lives become very unmanageable, right? So what happens, at least for most of us, is we begin to get frustrated. We keep trying to gain control over these attempts to do the same thing again and again and fix the non-fixable. And that becomes very frustrating. We become extremely rigid and dogmatic in heading life's problems and believing that there's only one way to do this one thing, that I need you to see this, and there's only one perfect way to do it. We deny the enormity of things that we don't have the power to change, and become locked into fantasy or magical thinking that, given enough time and energy, and if I keep trying, I can succeed in changing whatever it is that I'm trying to change, especially with our addicts and alcoholics and our loved ones. Becoming so full of self-pride that we're the only people that can be the savior to make this person see that we have to make this change occur. Then we become so preoccupied with making this change occur that we forget anything else in life, right? And facing this is like anything else. We can't see anything else. And we become obsessed with them. We don't realize that there might be a higher power or something else that might be able to enter our world and ask for help ourselves. We don't ask any other human being for their input, and maybe they have some suggestions or they can help support us. We become so frustrated and then depressed because we're not getting anywhere solving this problem. And then we become, angry and temper, sometimes rageful. We start flaring up, spontaneously and, inappropriately. And what we used to be able to control in ourselves, we can't even control. We feel defeated. And, that becomes another issue that we might actually crawl into bed ourselves. We begin to beat ourselves up and forget that we aren't perfect and that maybe there are other ways to do things. We, become so codependent with this person that we're trying to fix and change. And especially with these addicts and alcoholics in our lives, don't you see what you're doing to all of us? When in fact, if we loosen up the reins, and we just accept that we're powerless over these things, sometimes the issue will release itself. It's amazing. So if we can learn that, we don't actually have the locus of control in our hands, and we actually can affect the way that it helps others, if we kind of let go of that control, it's amazing what happens. And I think each and every one of you that has actually begun working in recovery in any way, shape, or form, and you get that first step of, I am actually powerless over how this all goes down. And the only thing I'm capable of saving is me. And really the only thing that I can work on is me. Everything begins to change. You and only you are capable of seeking help and support from others to fortify your own efforts and, in regards to you. By recognizing that you have addictive, impulsive, compulsive, and obsessive behaviors, and that you are powerless over fixing anybody else but you. Everything begins to change. It's amazing. And it's funny, right? We're looking at the addict or alcoholic, but in fact, we have become as compulsive and addictive with them as they are with their drug of choice. So I always it's always interesting to me when people talk to me about that. I'm like, so you have an addiction as well. It happens to be them. It's incredible. So, it's as lethal for us as their addiction is for them. And so that's one thing that I go, it's really important that you recognize our own. So how do we learn how to admit that we're powerless? So when you're troubled by another person's behaviors or by uncontrollable or unchangeable person, place, thing, situations in your life, there are steps that you can follow so you can admit that you're powerless over these things and enable them to get help from their own people, right? First, identify what behaviors, person, place, thing, or situation is causing you problems and making your life unmanageable. Second, identify what it is about the problem that makes you feel powerless. So in other words, I first identify that my person is an alcoholic. What is it that's making me feel powerless? Obviously, I can't get them to stop drinking. Third, identify what irrational beliefs keep you from admitting being powerless over the problem. So obviously, what it is that I can't get them to stop. So my irrational belief is that I'm supposed to in some way. Fourth, replace the irrational thinking with healthy, rational, more realistic thinking about powerlessness, such as the following positive affirmations. I am human and deserve support from others in my efforts to address problems that I'm currently feeling powerless over. So in other words, I need help from others to help me see that I'm not the only person that thinks this way, but that I really don't have the power to do that. And maybe some suggestions would be helpful from others. I deserve support and help to address these issues and problems for my own self-growth. I am a human to feel powerless since I'm not as omnipotent and I can't necessarily control what everybody else does. I will get closer to my recovery from my problems only once I admit that I am unable to solve them on my own. It's okay to feel powerlessness over my problems as long as I reach out to others for assistance and support. And if I believe this, my higher power. Fifth, once you have affirmed your right to admit powerlessness over your problem, then reach out to others to seek that support and assistance. Sixth, while doing so, simultaneously reach out from others to deal with your problems by seeking your higher power's assistance if you believe that way. Handing over the uncontrollable and unchangeable elements of your problem to a higher power. In other words, the things that I have no idea what to do with, I'm just going to let go of the result. Asking your higher power for strength, wisdom, and courage to deal with the uncontrollable and changeable elements of your problems. 7, once you gain help and support from others and your higher power, consciously and audaciously take steps to address the changeable elements for which you do have power. So in other words, when you have concrete things that you can actually do them. Because a lot of times I've been thinking one way. And when someone else gives me a suggestion, there's actually opportunity to do something. And I go, oh my gosh, I never thought of that. Maybe I could try that. And therefore, there is some things I can do, but I wasn't aware of it. Because again, my brain only goes one direction, right? I know, I swirl. And, sometimes I just keep spinning the same loop. And I go, okay, so why do we need others in our lives to help us? It's because sometimes there's another perspective out there that I never thought of. And you go like, oh my gosh, I'm an intelligent person. How did I not think of that? Well, we were trained to do it one way, and we think our way is the only way. And therefore, as we get into recovery, we broaden our horizons and go like, wow, there's many, many ways to do these things. Who knew? It's amazing, isn't it? It's really cool. 7, 8, recognize that process will be slow and erratic at first. Yeah, change is really tough, isn't it? Especially when I've never done it before. Changing behaviors in an impulsive, addictive, compulsive, or obsessive nature is never going to be good, right? Give yourself enough time to change, take it slow and easy, and be gentle with yourself. It's going to be new, it's going to be uncomfortable, and it's going to be really weird. You're going to go like, okay, this isn't working, I know, but keep stepping, especially if you have support of others. And 9th, admit to yourself that changing personal habits and behaviors is uncomfortable. Relapsing into old behaviors is a fact of life. It may happen. Let's not condone that behavior, but at the same time, we don't need to beat the crap out of ourselves if in fact that happens. Give yourself permission to be human and experience that if we have an emotional relapse, if you go back to asking questions, if you fall off the wagon, whatever it may be, but just jump back on, right? So being perfect at everything is never going to happen, but we continue down the road. Monitor your progress, lastly, in solving your problems and handle relapses, of your old behaviors. Try not to take on more than one thing at a time. Take one thing at a time, step by step. Easy does it. I know these little slogans used to drive me crazy at first. They used to just make me nuts. First things first, day by day, hour by hour. So really cool. This is probably the most important things is how to admit powerlessness, steps to admitting powerlessness. Now that you've been defined it, now you see the negative consequences. Now that you've learned how to, deal with it. First we have to kind of go like, here's the steps to admitting it. Number 1, in order to admit powerlessness, you first need to recognize what's causing it and what's causing your life to be unmanageable. Consider the following list. We've talked about it a little bit already. People, places, things, situations, personal behaviors, impulsive behaviors, a thing that you do right away with no pre-thought or hesitation, right? Addictive behaviors, a thing we do with no thought at all, which is a habit or out of control, right? We can't control it. It just continues to happen. Compulsive behaviors, a thing I do with little thought, over and over again, hard to control. So for a lot of us, it's about dealing with our addicts and alcoholics. I can't control it. I just can't stop thinking about them. I got to fix this. So some of those behaviors are really, addictive and compulsive and obsessive. And obsessive behavior is a thing you do over and over again because you don't believe it is perfectly done unless it is corrected and modified over and over again. So in your journal, for each of these categories listed above, consider these questions. What's problematic about it? What is problematic for you? Why is it causing your life to be unmanageable? What efforts have you used in the past, or are you currently trying to correct it? Why have your efforts to solve, change, or control failed at this point? How do you feel about your lack of success at solving, controlling, or changing it? Whose help, assistance, or support have you enlisted to solve it? To what extent is it an uncontrollable, unchanged element in your life? To what extent is it controllable or changeable element in your life? Why have you not let go of the unchangeable or uncontrollable element before? Step 2, once you identify your problems, and then identify in your journal the thinking in which keeps you from admitting this powerlessness to solve each of these on your own. Step 3, in your journal, develop a set of new self-talk or self-affirmations to give you permission to admit powerlessness over each of these problems. Step 4, in your journal, identify for each problem a person for whom you can seek support and assistance to help you. Step 5, in your journal, identify if you can reach or seek your higher power's assistance for each of these problems, if you believe in a higher power. Step 6, seek help from each other for these problems. Let go or hand over these uncontrollable, or unchangeable problems to your higher power or a person to seek help for these things. And lastly, monitor your progress in addressing each of these problems. If you're having little or no success in these, you're probably not admitting your powerlessness over this. So you need just to return to step 1 and start again. Okay? And you probably need to seek some professional help or get to a meeting or talk to a friend or start doing something that you're not doing. Right? Again, the biggest issue that we have is thinking that we by ourselves can solve this problem. I think that most of us, really think that if we keep it to ourselves and don't tell anybody that this situation is going on and that we can, monitor it on our own, it eats us alive, right? And we think we have power where we have no power. And slowly but surely it shreds us. I mean, literally from the inside out. We become shells of people who we were. And, slowly but surely it's insidious. And we go, what is happening here? How is this thing taking my life from me? And, people go like, I don't know how come I'm so crazy. What is happening to me? I don't know where I lost myself. And I go, well, it's true. We do let ourselves be robbed from everything. And we lose our total focus on life. But we don't have to. And it starts with learning how to admit that we are powerless over our situations, especially our addicts and alcoholics. But it takes courage to do so. It does mean I have to let go of that control. And it's perceived control. Remember that. We have none. The sooner that we can understand that, the sooner we can begin to get healthy. And that is why we want you to reach out to someone for some help. So that's a little snippet on powerlessness. I hope it's a little bit helpful. There's a lot of information in there. If you would like more, feel free to reach out or DM us at info at, this our email address, info at healing families, info at familyandaddictionexperts.com. You can look up us for a free consult at familyandaddictionexperts.com. We have an Instagram, and just, we want to help you in any way that we can. We know this is a really, really tough subject, but when you're at that place where you need to start to recognize that you have no power, where you think you have power, it's time to get some help. All right? We pray for you and hope that in some way we can be helpful. All right? If nothing else, we can guide you in the right direction. There's free resources on our website, so feel free to check that out as well. That's at www.familyandaddictionexperts.com. That's www.familyandaddictionexperts.com. All right. Take it easy. And until the next time, this is Healing Families Shattered by Addiction. Thanks so much for joining our podcast, Healing Families Shattered by Addiction. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with more important tools, techniques, and ways for you to focus on you instead of the alcoholic or addict in your world.
Until then, please go to our website, familyandaddictionexperts.com. That's familyandaddictionexperts.com. You'll also see links to our Facebook and Instagram pages. Please also, if you have any emails that you would like to send us, that's info@familyandaddictionexperts.com. That's info@familyandaddictionexperts.com. With any thoughts, feelings, questions that you may have for us, we would love to hear from you, and we look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks.